Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this online workshop on the role of innovative technologies in vocational education and training, or VET. My name is Marieke van de Weijer. I lead the work on VET in the OECD Center for Skills, and I will be your moderator today. So thank you very much for joining us today. This session will explore how innovative technologies such as virtual reality or artificial intelligence can strengthen VET, and we'll be drawing on OECD countries' examples and on evidence of effective technology used in VET. The workshop aims to provide practical insights into how VET can be leveraged, how technology can be leveraged in VET, but also to provide further inputs to a policy paper that we are drafting that will be supporting Ukraine in strengthening its VET system. Now, this workshop is part of a big 4-year country program that the OECD has with Ukraine. And that country program was designed in close collaboration or in close consultation with the government of Ukraine to make sure it supports Ukraine reform, recovery, and reconstruction priorities, while also helping advance EU and OECD membership aspirations and other international obligations. Now, the workshop is only one part of a bigger support project on vocational education training that we're doing with Ukraine. In addition to the discussions that we're having today and the policy paper that I just mentioned, we are also supporting Ukraine with its VET qualifications and with the online vocational education training platform. Now, before introducing our speakers, let me just share a few practical details. So you can listen to this webinar also in Ukrainian. So please use the button on your screen to switch between English and Ukrainian. You can use the chat to ask any questions you may have to our speakers, to our panelists later. So we've set aside a bit of time at the end to take your questions. So please put them in the chat and we'll try to answer as much as we can. And lastly, we are recording also this session, so you can rewatch it later and also share it with your network. So without further ado, I would like now to give the floor to Ms. Irina Shumik, who is the Director General of the Directorate of Professional Education in the Ministry of Education and Science in Ukraine. Thank you very much for joining us, Irina, and over to you.
Добрий день, шановні колеги. Дуже дякую, Марієке, за запрошення і за те, що ми сьогодні можемо працювати власне над новими технологіями, вивчати нові технології, зокрема досвід країн ОЕСІДі. Як вже було зазначено, дійсно розпочинається нова програма підтримки, експертної підтримки з боку країн ОЕСІДі системи професійно-технічної освіти в Україні. Один із її напрямів – це якраз питання діджиталізації, створення електронних освітніх ресурсів і використання доповненої реальності, віртуальної реальності в освітніх технологіях або як освітні технології. І ми сьогодні хочемо дізнатися, і дуже вдячні нашим колегам за те, що вони підготували експертів з різних країн, які поділяться своїм досвідом використання інноваційних технологій, але водночас пишаємося тим, що разом з нами сьогодні будуть і наші партнери з України, з якими ми робимо перші кроки в частині діджиталізації і, власне, запровадження імерсивних технологій в навчання в системі професійно-технічної освіти. Я зроблю невеличку презентацію, це буквально декілька слайдів. Хочу просто так більш структуровано проговорити про те, що ми маємо на сьогодні. У мене такий міксований формат, слайди англійською, буду говорити українською. Я думаю, що так буде всім зручно, тим паче, що ми маємо переклад. Отже, з чого ми почали? Якщо говорити про створення електронних освітніх матеріалів, власне, це про створення платформи для дистанційного навчання саме в системі професійно-технічної освіти. Платформа Profosvita.online на сьогодні налічує вже 70 тисяч, понад 70 тисяч зареєстрованих користувачів. Прямо зараз навчаються на курсах 36 тисяч 340 юзерів, користувачів, і в нас видано вже за цей рік 3700 сертифікатів. Тобто частина наших курсів якраз має таку можливість видачі сертифікати. І загалом ми маємо 36 категорій, за якими здійснюється навчання. Перш за все, звичайно, платформа зосереджена на навчання за тими професіями, які є на сьогодні проліцензовані в закладах освіти, і ця платформа є безумовно підтримкою для навчання організації навчання на тимчасово окупованих територіях або територіях, де ведуться бойові дії, чи які знаходяться дуже близько до лінії фронту і не можуть організувати в нормальному режимі навчання. Тому там досить так багато курсів за популярними професіями на сьогодні, тобто там, де ми маємо велику кількість здобувачів освіти. І, власне, ми обрали підхід, оскільки дуже складно розробити електронні освітні матеріали одразу на всі предмети, на всі курси за професіями. Ми все ж таки обираємо ті пріоритети, які на сьогодні є найактуальніші, і ті теми, які досить складно викладати в онлайн, в звичайному онлайн форматі під час уроків, які проводять викладачі. І саме тому частина цих курсів вони оснащені додатковими інструментами, вбудованими в курси, які ми не можемо похвалитися поки що і сказати, що в нас є віртуальна реальність на платформі, але доповнена реальність є тренажери, є певні симуляційні вправи, які дозволяють власне спробувати ці технології. Водночас хочу сказати, що ми активно працюємо з нашими партнерами і розпочали запровадження технологій віртуальної реальності в професійно-технічних закладах освіти. Минулого року за підтримки Міжнародної організації праці, а також Європейського фонду освіти і компанії Мінбюс було організовано відповідне навчання про використання віртуальних технологій для викладачів і майстрів виробничого навчання, а також закуплено 3 набори для віртуальної реальності, які сьогодні, використовуючи програмне забезпечення компанії Мінбус, якраз і апробуються, пілотуються в Україні. Тут важливо зазначити, що ми фокусуємося перш за все саме на сфері будівництва. Тобто для нас, враховуючи наскільки зараз потрібні фахівці для відбудови всього того, що руйнується чи вже зруйновано, основний фокус якраз в цих матеріалах у нас на будівництві. Ну і варто зазначити, що для того, щоб запроваджувати дистанційні технології, інформаційні технології, віртуальну реальність в системі професійної освіти, треба, щоб учні до нас приходили вже підготовлені. І Міністерство освіти і науки в цьому напрямку активно працює щодо розвитку STEM освіти, починаючи ще із загальної школи, тобто з середньої школи. В нас створюються відповідні кабінети, класи STEM освіти. Також хочу зазначити, що для забезпечення освітнього процесу в тих регіонах, в яких сьогодні існує проблема з організацією очного навчання, тобто face-to-face learning, створюється за підтримки міжнародних партнерів. У нас digital learning центри, тобто цифрові освітні центри, які облаштовуються, як правило, у сховищах, тобто у безпечних місцях, де також обладнано всіма необхідними інструментами, обладнанням і, власне, де можна ознайомитися із технологіями 3D-друку і іншими технологіями, які на сьогодні можуть запропонувати наші партнери. Що стосується наших партнерів, то я би хотіла в черговий раз сказати дякую нашим основним донорам. Це Міжнародна організація праці, німецький уряд, польський уряд і, власне, уряд Швейцарії, які через програми EU for Skills, через проекти DAP і посилення спроможності інклюзивного ринку праці якраз і підтримували розроблення електронних освітніх матеріалів для нашої платформи. Але, як я вже сказала, ми не зупиняємося на сьогодні. Європейський фонд освіти, і ми дуже дякуємо ЄСІДі за те, що вони приймають цю естафету, і наступні декілька місяців, більше декілька років у нас буде зосереджено на тому, щоб наші технології в частині використання віртуальної доданої реальності, вони тільки набирали обертів і розвивалися. Ще раз дякую всім, хто доєднався. Я насправді в такому очікуванні. Мені дуже цікаво, що сьогодні розкажуть і презентують наші колеги, наші спікери, експерти. І всім бажаю гарного і цікавого вебінару.
Thank you very much, Irina, for telling us a bit about the context of the sorry. I was struggling with the interpretation there for a second. Yeah, so thank you very much, Rina. And this provides excellent context for the rest of the discussion now that we know a little bit about the situation on technology use in Ukraine. So I'd like to now hand over to my colleague Shin Young, who will present the preliminary findings of the policy paper that we are preparing that provides insights on what is happening internationally on technology use in vocational education. Shin Young, over to you.
Thank you, Mary Kay, for the introduction, and thank you, Irina, for the keynotes, and thank you all for participating in this workshop. Now I'm going to share with you an overview of our upcoming policy paper on the role of innovative technologies in VET, which will will offer insights to Ukraine and its effort for strengthening its VET system. First, I will walk you through 4 aspects in VET as an introduction. Next, I will share examples of how technologies can transform VET in practice. And finally, I will outline some preliminary policy messages. There are different processes and functions in VET, but when it comes to technology used in VET, we can focus on these 4 aspects. First, engaging stakeholders. Second, training learners. Third, assessing and certifying acquired skills. And finally, managing these processes. And more specifically, innovative technologies can help engaging learners and employers in VET, match learners to relevant training. Second, provide safe, efficient, and personalized training and improve access to training. And third, technologies can also help assess and certify learners' acquired skills. And finally, technologies can also help streamline administrative tasks and facilitate information exchange among VET stakeholders. Regarding the first aspect, data analytics, profiling models, and artificial intelligence can enhance how learners engage with VET programs. For example, by identifying learners' strengths, weaknesses, and career interests, and creating individualized and tailored profiles. These profiles help VET providers identify the most suitable programs and learning support for each other. By identifying skills and training gaps through data analytics and AI, employers can also more effectively partner with VET providers to deliver targeted training programs that address their specific needs. Technologies can also play a crucial role in matching learners, employers, and VET providers through online platforms. These platforms can analyze skills and labor market demands in real time through profiling tools, machine learning, machine algorithm, and AI, which ultimately help enhance the matching process. There are several examples for this. During the pandemic, countries have increased the delivery of career guidance programs through digital technologies, including online career talks and virtual job fairs to help motivate learners to engage in that. In England, an AI career chatbot called CC supports personalized career exploration for learners by giving them access to careers and training information. It can be translated into different languages and has a text-to-speech function to support individuals with different learning needs. It used data analytics to help align the services with each individuals. In Finland, an online platform called Study Info connects learners with VET providers and training employers. Based on AI, it provides information on training paths, VET programs, providers, and allows learners to explore and apply for VET programs that matches their interests, needs, and qualifications. To enhance training, VET institutions can use immersive tools like virtual reality, augmented reality, or simulators to provide learners with practical experience that mimic actual job environments. These technologies are particularly useful in high-risk vocational fields such as healthcare, construction, and aviation. Virtual reality can avoid any possible physical, chemical, or biological waste that could result from practice, experiment, or exercises. Virtual reality also eliminates the need for expensive equipment and facilities such as aircraft simulators or heavy machinery, which make training more affordable and scalable. Not only for this, online virtual learning can improve access to training for learners in remote areas, making that more inclusive. In addition, adaptive and tailored learning technologies can personalize VET. With these technologies, VET programs can aim to train people with learning difficulties, addressing their training challenges. For example, immersive technologies can provide learners with simulated work environments where they can train for skills in a risk-free virtual setting without needing physical access to the equipment or job site. In addition to assistive and adaptive technologies, wearable devices or smart exoskeleton can assist learners in case of need, for example, for veterans with disabilities. Many different platforms offer immersive and online training. One example is Interplay that offers VR, 3D simulations, and video-based courses for skilled trades. And you'll also see in the panel discussion how the garden VR from the Switzerland can help train gardener apprentices. Technology also makes training more accessible. So, for example, in Norway, apprentices are able to complete their training requirements through specialized e-platforms. There are many different e-platforms, and in the remote areas, these e-platforms allows apprentices to fulfill their training requirements remotely. Assessing and certifying learner skills can also rely on digital technologies. Digital assessments provide deeper insights into learners' competencies by measuring skills through many different digital formats. These assessments can also automate the creation of exam questions, tasks, and also consolidate exams to test a series of competence-based tests. Technology enhances the certification process by introducing secure and portable digital credentials. Especially blockchain technology creates verifiable and reliable digital certificates, reduce administrative costs, and prevent fraud. Technology can also help maintain relevance and responsiveness of VET system by better monitoring quality and outcomes in VET as well as skill needs. For example, through big data, such as online job vacancy data and data analytics on labor market outcomes of learners. There are also several platforms and applications that are in use for assessing and certifying skills. One example is Valid8. This is a vocational assessment platform designed to evaluate and certify skills using multimedia evidence and artificial intelligence. It builds e-portfolios to demonstrate skills, analyze performance, and cross-reference training gaps. Another example is QualiChain project that leverages blockchain technology to transform how credentials are managed, verified, and shared across diverse education systems and institutions. And finally, technology can manage VET more efficiently by automating administrative tasks and facilitating exchange, collaboration, and coordination. Teachers, including VET teachers, usually spend most of their time on non-teaching tasks and responsibilities. So here, technology can be used to reduce administrative and repetitive tasks involved in VET, to better support the management of data, process, and learning practices. For example, online learning management systems and virtual collaboration and coordination tools can help simplify admin tasks and enable real-time communication across all stakeholders in VET. One example is Estonian Education Information System. Estonia has been managing information and data on students, schools, and curricula through this system. So schools are required to enter all the relevant information and data directly into the system, and they can access their school-specific data to monitor their performance and to integrate this information into their management and learning approaches. In Switzerland, a learning platform for dual VET called Realto was designed to bridge learning processes across different learning environments. It facilitates information exchange about apprentices' learning practice between VET school and company. All these technologies have lots of potential in VET, and we saw some promising examples. However, it comes with challenges. Funding and policy support are crucial to develop, use, maintain, and update these technologies, while teachers, learners, and providers in VET need to develop their own skills and capacity to fully benefit from innovative tools. In addition, data privacy, protection, comparability issues, and ethical considerations must be addressed. So to address these challenges, we propose three key policy messages. First, technology advancement and integration in VET requires strategy and investment. Second, technology and pedagogy should go together. Lastly, countries should ensure the ethical and secure use of technology and the data generated by the use of technology. I'm not going through all the examples, but just to highlight some example is Knowledge Centers for Automation and Robot Technology in Denmark provides a good example. And also we will hear about Innovet from Flanders during the panel discussion. I've shared examples of how technology can transform VET and outline the key policies needed to realize its full potentials. Of course, this is just a glimpse of the big picture, and we will hear more insights and examples from our panelists shortly. And thank you for your attention, and I look forward to the panel discussion. Back to you, Mariki.
Thank you very much, Shin Young, for this comprehensive overview of the different aspects on which technology can contribute to that, and for highlighting already a few examples. But let's indeed delve a bit deeper into some examples in our panel discussion. So I'm happy to present our four panelists that are joining us here today. So we have with us Ms. Olena Gordienko, who is a program manager and head of commercial L&D for Sigma Software in Ukraine. We also have Professor Kevin Kim with us, who is from the Institute for Interactive Technologies at the University of Applied Sciences and Arts in Northwestern Switzerland. We have with us Mr. James Love, who is the Chief Product Officer at Aptem in the United Kingdom. And last, we have also with us Mr. Joachim van Oost, who is a policy officer at the Education and Training Department of the Flemish government in Belgium. So I will ask the panelists a set of questions, but after that, we would like to open the floor also to questions from the audience. So let me repeat again to everyone listening that you can post your questions in the chat. You can, if you want, highlight the name of the person that you are addressing your question to, so that we can take that at the end of this discussion. So let's maybe start this question set with Kevin. Kevin, you have been researching innovative technology use in vet for a few years already. Can you tell us a bit about the key technologies that you see being used or that you think have potential in vet, and what do you see as their potential? And also, if you have an example to share, we would appreciate that. Thanks, Kevin.
All right, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure. And thank you for the question. Indeed, I have been conducting research on applying innovative technologies in vet. Well, there are many technologies, but my main focus, my main interest was around virtual reality, which was already mentioned a few times. I'm gonna share you an example, a video. Will speak more than words. So I can share my screen. So it was an application of virtual reality for training gardeners. And imagine a gardener apprentice working on a site. He has some ideas. So what he does is he flies a drone, he scans the area, and he goes back to the class, and then with 3D reconstruction algorithms, we can reconstruct the digital copy of the real environment, and then you are free to do whatever you want to do. You can plant trees, place objects, and then what you can do is you can immerse yourself inside the environment and experience it yourself. And then what's more interesting is that you have this power to do things that is not possible in reality. You can play with the time, change different seasons, see how trees grow, and even change the time of the day to see how shadows change, for example, which was quite important for gardeners. And then hopefully this apprentice will go back to the site, back to his colleagues. So in a way, close the loop. So it's a very short version of the demonstration. But for me, the virtual reality technology, it's a very interesting match between VR and vocational training. First, you can replicate realistic simulation situations, and it's particularly interesting when the situation rarely happens in reality. And Shin-Young already mentioned, if it's a high-risk situation, probably virtual environment is the right place for training. For example, you cannot put a building into fire to train firefighters. Mechanics working on a specific type of aircraft, if you don't have that aircraft, you can train it in virtual reality. That's the opportunity. Second, as you saw in the video, you can give superpower to learners, which is really interesting in learning. You can experiment things. You can change the season, fast forward the time, go back in time if you need to, place a tree and remove it in seconds and move it to in 2 meters next to the original position. So the ability to do things that is not possible in reality, that's the second point. Third, you can repeat as many times as you want. It's a key part of learning that you repeat until you master. So virtual environment creates this playground for the learners to do whatever they want to do. So I'm using virtual reality as an example, but it's just one of the technologies. There are AI these days, cloud computing, and web-based learning, many technologies that can potentially enhance that. But I think what's important is that you consider the affordances of each technology, what the technology can be used for. And then you try to match it with the need of the environment, the country, the vocation, or the learning goals, pedagogy. So you need to carefully make sure this is a right match between the technology and the learning goals and all other situations that are present in the learning environment. I'll stop here and maybe I'll continue afterwards.
Thank you, Kevin, and also for showing that example. It was good to see the superpowers that you built into that. That's interesting to observe. So let's maybe move to a second concrete example. So I'll move to Olina. So Sigma Software has been supporting the development of the online courses in Ukraine that Irina just discussed as well. Could you share a bit more about how these courses were developed, how they work, and also how they are being used currently by VET learners in Ukraine?
Hello, colleagues. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak with you today. Yes, I'm Olena Gordienko, and I represent Sigma Software. It's a company with Swedish roots and Ukraine origin. Over the past 22 years, Sigma Software has built a global reputation for delivering cutting-edge IT solutions and consulting services to clients worldwide. And of course, Sigma Software established its educational unit and called it Sigma Software University that implements such a great project. Today, I'd like to focus on our experience in vocational education, particularly in our efforts we dedicated to enhancing that in Ukraine. In summer of 2023, we were approached by the International Labour Organization to participate in a tender organized by Ukraine's Ministry of Education and Science. Our primary task was to create a roadmap for courses in such occupations as constructions, electric networks, and transport. Also, these fields were entirely new for Sigma Software. The methods and approaches of modern instructional design are quite universal. Our experts successfully created the roadmap for these areas and, in addition, received an order to develop the course themselves. We excelled and enjoy creating such educational content, especially for the project with such a meaningful mission, making vocational education freely accessible online from any corners of the country. For us, this was a significant challenge and a tremendous responsibility to contribute to the development of segment of Ukrainian education that is, I think, critical for the country post-war recovery. We collaborate with diverse teams, including regional professionals, representatives from Ukraine's Ministry of Education and Science, for example, with Irina Shumik, Anna Bonder, and others, and our own specialists across Ukraine. Together, we developed 19 courses for the Profosvita.online platform, which offer free, accessible, and high-quality courses for vocational school students, educators, and independent learners. I'd like to share my screen and show an example. Here you can see one of such courses that is full of different type of interactive elements that give the possibility to the students to receive the information in different ways. And of course, it became more interesting for them. Also, it is full of different type of videos, simulators, and animations that also make this course more interesting for them. After each of the model, we receive assessment. Also, it is different type of assessment because it is sometimes it's quiz, sometimes it is interactive exercise. Now you can see it here. Also, it is different type of this exercise. You have a possibility to receive a hint and understood what to do, and also you receive the answer whether it was correct or not. And of course, I would like to say some additional words to that. That thanks to such a project and similar initiatives, we now have the capacity and expertise to undertake such large-scale education projects. Moreover, we have established partnership with employees ready to offer hands-on experience, and of course, also have the possibility to make employment opportunities for learners. We became a board member of newest established Ukrainian EdTech Association, that is now a part of European Tech Alliance to advance education, including vocational training. We visit Estonia and met there with the Ministry of Vocational Education. It inspired us to bring similar tech-driven innovations to Ukraine. In conclusion, I'd like to say that with our expertise, innovative technology, and partnership, we aim to make vocational education more accessible and impactful. We welcome collaborations to achieve this shared vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Olena, and for telling us a bit more about the support you're providing to the Ukrainian vet system. We'll come back to you later as well, but let me first move now to James, who can show us another example of a technology in vet, quite a different type. I think it's also a platform, but a fairly different one that supports vet learners and providers throughout the vet journey. Could you tell us a bit more about the platform, the applications, how they work, how they were developed, and how they're being used?
Yeah, I certainly can. Thank you for inviting me here, and very interesting to hear what Professor Kim and Elena had to say there. I represent Aptem. I'm their Chief Product Officer, and we are the UK's leading end-to-end vocational learning delivery platform. We support learners, providers, and employers all the way through their vocational journey from onboarding to program completion and ultimately to what we call in the UK here endpoint assessment. That's the final bit where they get certificated and assessed as having achieved what they've done. We manage everything from that initial skills assessment, also looking into cognitive challenges, whether it may be need for additional learning support. Think about individuals with dyslexia or something equivalent, what we can do to identify their needs upfront. We identify their initial challenges and therefore can build into a tailored learning plan, all the while having a focus on compliance with funding rules. So the UK vocational market is largely or predominantly funded by government funding. And it's, I'll simplify it to a tax that's imposed on employers where they pay into this pot from which all learners can benefit when they come into vocational learning. A learner has to be in work to do vocational learning here in the UK in the vast majority of cases, because the whole point, of course, is learning as you work and developing those skills over time. And so we help all three of those parties, that provider, the learner, and the employer, through that whole journey. The fundamental point is our system helps prepare learners for endpoint assessments. I want to talk about a few key features of the product, which kind of aligns with the conversation here today. So I've just mentioned tailored learning. Now, we very much focus in on a requirement to follow a curriculum in a program. However, unlike academia, there is an expectation of recognizing prior learning for a learner and adapting that learning plan to get the appropriate amount of funding, the appropriate amount of training for that learner, with the intention always to stretch and challenge learners above and beyond where they perhaps are currently performing. There's always an expectation that they can perhaps do more. This is, of course, aligned with a couple of governmental bodies here, or compliance bodies of Ofsted, you may have heard of before. They look across all educational elements to ensure that it's being delivered at an appropriate standard. And then we have the ESFA, who really are the rules, compliance, and funding body that sits behind apprenticeships. So our whole system is built in mind with working towards the requirements of those two bodies, ensuring that training is delivered appropriately and on time and within compliance. I want to show you a couple of examples of technology that we have leveraged and we put out for our customers and for our learners. So I'm going to go first, and I will keep this brief. There's a lot in Aptem. I've just said that it's an end-to-end platform. I'm not going to show you everything. But one of the key challenges that we identified actually around 18 months ago was that there is a greater requirement for learners to get interaction with tutors, more so than frankly organizations can necessarily provide or afford. And also because apprenticeships run for 13 plus months, there need to be more regular interactions to understand where a learner is progressing. Now, within Aptem itself, we have a learning plan built out, and this is, of course, configurable for every single customer and every single different program. And so you can see what a learner is meant to do over time, and the learner can engage with their learning as and when they need to. However, that in itself can be quite daunting. And also it is by nature intended to take you from point A through point B to point C. It is to some degree linear, and linear by design, because it's meant to take you through each step and build on your knowledge over time. So we developed a new part of the product, which is they're called checkpoints. So from a learner perspective, they can come in and, having completed some learning over the course of time throughout their apprenticeship at regular micro intervals, they can complete a series of questions which prompt and check in on their understanding of what they've just learned or what perhaps they'd learned previously. And we've used AI technology in order to put this in place. So it recognizes what the learner's done, it recognizes where they need to be sort of stretched a bit further, and presents a series of multiple choice questions against what they've learned. I'm not going to take you through all of them. I am very limited on time, but the idea here is this is a learning tool as well as a check step into where the learner is going. So I'm probably going to get a lot of these wrong as I rattle through them. I'm not going to read them. So please don't judge me on my capability. We've also introduced, and this was why I was quite excited to see the VR work from Professor Kim. Um, we have scenario-based questions as well, where you can't always accommodate for every single scenario that's going to come up. That's the nature of work. You'll learn something, but it won't necessarily happen. So how do you ensure that a learner knows how to react in that circumstance? And it's not quite as exciting as using VR to see this, but we present AI generated scenario based questions where we place that learner in a scenario to try and understand how they would react. You can't contrive the world, but we can contrive how the sort of system operates. Again, I'm probably going to be told I've done terribly here. If I've lucked out and got them all right, good for me. But a learner, no, I've got only one right out of four. Oh well. But this is the point. So you get to the end, and the learner understands where they've gone wrong because they can dig into and understand in the theory. Okay, well, they get some coached responses as to, well, what would be the correct response, so they can learn from this. And all of this information is also given over to the tutor. Now, we also introduced, because tutors are limited on time, we also introduced the capability to have an assistant within the product itself. So it takes the context, it knows what the learner has been doing, it knows where they're needing to learn and grow, and the learner can engage in a sort of Socratic dialogue between this assistant and themselves to help coach and build on those skills. And it allows for an asynchronous support. Not all vocational learners, in fact, not all workers, full stop, are 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, but quite often tutors are. So when a learner actually needs that help and support, perhaps the tutor is not available. So the whole point here is reducing feedback loops and ensuring that learners get their feedback right on time when they need it, but equally they get that help and support, whilst tutors get to see where they're up to in that overall learning journey. And this is, of course, all transparent and all shared back with the employer as well as part of a requirement. So the key stakeholders, of course, in the regulated vocational training space of those three individuals, just helps understand where they're up to at every point. I just want to sort of round off by talking about really where we help with providers. So providers who use Aptem achieve higher revenue and success rates compared to others. This is thanks to efficiencies like faster feedback loops and the tutor tools that I've talked about today, and there's an ongoing effort to make those even better. The checkpoint feature that I've just shown you reduces the reliance on that 13-week statutory review cycle that exists in place by shortening and providing more regular actionable feedback. But we also have an ethical consideration here. So we very deliberately decided to embed these kind of functionalities within our product because we're leveraging those advanced AI models, but whilst maintaining those strict ethical standards and data protection. Our technology is context aware. It's within the product itself. It ensures the learners receive tailored support and the data stays secure. So you can use any tool outside of Aptem, of course, but it already knows a lot about the learner. It knows where they're up to and nothing sort of traffics in or out of the product, which is, of course, a key consideration, certainly for European countries and for the UK with the strict GDPR legislation that sits alongside it. My final thing to say is we are combining a cutting edge technology with a learner centric approach. We're driving efficiencies, improving outcomes, and empowering providers to stay high quality, delivering vocational training. We believe technology can not only support, but also reshape vet policy and practice for the better. We are working with governmental organisations within the UK in order to improve the adoption of technology and the advantage that can be sought via technology. That was my whistle-stop tour. I hope that was enough for you, but I look forward to any questions anyone may have later.
Thank you, James. I'm sure we'll get a few questions later on, but thanks for showing this very comprehensive platform that provides tailored support and facilitates exchange between exactly those three stakeholders that you mentioned. So we've now heard from some very concrete examples, but I'd like to now go to Joachim, who can tell us also how to kind of support the development and use of such technology solutions. So Joachim, in Flanders, the Innovet program does exactly that. So it was launched in 2019 and supports and encourages the use of technology in VET. Can you tell us a bit how that works and how it also assists teachers in vocational education?
Absolutely, Marike. Thank you for having me on as a member of this panel. And of course, also thank you for organizing this inspiring workshop. I've heard many interesting things about how VET education is done in other countries, and I hope it's also inspiring for our Ukrainian guests. Before I start explaining Innovet, it is perhaps important to note that in Flanders, we have a large degree of freedom of education, which means the state cannot interfere with how teachers and schools teach kids. We can, however, stimulate the use of learning methods and innovation, and Innovet is one such example of how we, as the Ministry of Education and Training, try to strengthen vocational education and training. Innovet stands for Innovation in Vocational Education and Training, and the aim is to allow local schools to develop and to share innovative learning materials for mainly initial education. In this way, Innovet aims to, on the one hand, strengthen the cooperation between education and the labor market. Secondly, to stimulate innovation and professionalization of teachers to give students insights into the latest and the future developments in their field. How does Innovet work exactly? Via Innovet, we give schools financial support for 1 year, and those schools can work on innovative or current challenges and technical developments within the profession based on their own learning needs. It's very important to couple it always to their own local learning needs. And the school then searches local collaborations with sector federations, like, for example, the wood sector or the construction sector, local companies, academics, software developers, and pedagogical guidance services. The project team, which will always be led by the school, then develop a particular innovative or didactic tool. And by sharing knowledge in the field, the labor market field, that is, and other partners, it enriches the expertise of our VET teachers, and it also provides a finished product that our pupils can take and learn from. Because oftentimes, as many of our previous experts have stated, it is not always possible to have certain materials in a school. Like, for example, you cannot work on an airplane in a school, or you cannot work on a big bus in a school, or you cannot place floor heating in a school. So certain things are more efficient and more effective to train by using innovative technology. And then at the end of the 1 year project cycle, the school will deliver the product. And very important, we also put a big emphasis on dissemination, because it is important that not only the local school can use these products, but it's also important that other schools can learn from it. So they always have to deliver next to the product other supporting materials, such as guidelines on how to use it, specific courses that they have developed in which they can show other teachers how to use these new tools. The support network is very important. We see via research that teachers have a lot of resistance in using new technology. So providing this support to teachers is crucial. It's absolutely crucial. It cannot be understated, the emotional impact of using new technologies in schools, how to position yourself as a teacher next to these new technologies. So providing support in this regard is crucial to Innovet. So perhaps I could share a small excerpt from a file I'll try and see if I manage to do so. All right, I hope this works. So you see in this example, I hope this does not work. Marika, do you see my screen?
We can see the screen, but nothing moves. So
Yeah.
just partially. Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot start it, unfortunately. So
Try hitting
perhaps I
space.
can place the link in the chat so our dear guests can look at the video in their own time. Then I stop the share. My apologies. I was looking forward to share some Innovat insights by showing a real product. So perhaps another important aspect of Innovat is we do not limit which kind of technology can be used by the school. So we do not say it's only VR or it has to be a learning platform, because it always stems from the local needs. Some certain schools will need VR, another school will develop a learning cover, for example, or another school will have the need for a learning platform or an e-learning. So it's always coupled to that local need. And if I have to give you one takeaway, try to stimulate the use of technology on the local level, because then you have, in my opinion, the most opportunities for breakthrough. It's the local teacher that has to feel comfortable using these technologies and getting used to them, how to position himself or herself to the new technologies. So try to break through that local level is crucial.
Thank you, Joachim. And yes, please feel free to post in the chat the link so that we can take a look afterwards. And thanks for highlighting that point about the local needs. That resonates also very well with what Professor Kim was saying about matching the use with the needs. And thanks also for highlighting that the element on teacher skills and their confidence in using technology. That is indeed one of the challenges that we have seen in previous research as well at the OECD, that many teachers do not feel confident using digital technologies in the classroom. So maybe that brings me to kind of the closing question, at least from my side, before we go to the Q&A from the audience. Just one question that I have for all of our speakers here. Can you share some of the insights you have on the challenges or the barriers that you have faced or that you have observed in your research, in your work, for the development and the integration of technology in VET, but also how have these challenges been addressed? And let's maybe start this time with Olina, ladies first this time. Olina, what challenges have you seen in your work?
Actually, do you think? I think that now one of the biggest challenges it is very hard to keep modern student interest. So we used creative approach when making courses. We add interactive exercise, storytelling, animation, because it is really a lot of information, and students would like to receive the best content ever. And also our instructional designers try to turn maybe 100 of pages of boring materials into a very interesting story with easy to understand exercises, tasks, and animations.
Thank you. That is indeed a challenge, and also one of the kind of key aspects that Chin Young highlighted in the presentation as well, to make VET more accessible and potentially more attractive through technology, but indeed not easy to achieve. Same question maybe for James, for the platform. Which challenges have you seen there, and how have you been addressing them?
The challenges ultimately come back to changing of mindsets. It's a very human element, more so than anything else. We have a digital platform that we build to be digital first. The UK vocational training industry has been going for a very long time. it certainly is, you could argue, predates academia in some senses, because the concept of learning from another and learning in work is as old as time. And that's not unique to the UK. However, changing the mindset from, let's say, only 8 years ago, where the vast majority of learning through vocational learning was all done on paper. You would receive a folder with all of your pieces of paper within it, which say what you need to do, what you need to record, when you need to do it. And you would work with a tutor or coach, and they'd come to your place of work, they'd talk you through the things. And it was very paper based, very paper dense. And we're providing a digital solution. And I'm probably exaggerating even that it was only 8 years ago. There are some situations where paper is still the predominant use. Then this digital transformation takes place, and it was certainly accelerated by the period of time we'd all rather forget of COVID, where you couldn't be physically present in the same place. But we've sort of transitioned, or customers are transitioning to using a digital first approach. But their stepping stone on that was really translating what was paper into something digital. And really, all it ended up being then was a PDF version or a document version, but happened to be viewed through a screen. So you could argue not much of an improvement, and a lot of sacrifices therefore being made over some of the potential power that technology has, because technology doesn't think in pieces of paper. Not at all. I know we might like to think it does. So that's been one of the biggest challenges. But we are in quite a nice situation here in the UK, where we do have a lot of third-party systems around which manage learner records and learning over time. So we kind of integrate a lot of those in, and then some of the need for some of that data capture doesn't need to be redone, but it's still an ongoing journey for sure. And it's digital transformation and change.
Thank you, James. And I'm sure all of the countries are struggling with that challenge. Kevin, also the same question from you from your research. What are some of the challenges and the solutions, maybe?
Sure. I think I can mention 2 points. One, there are too many stakeholders compared to normal or more classical education. There's teacher at the vocational school. There's a boss at your company, and there's professional association. And so somehow it was a challenge. I think it's the case in many countries to build a consensus among all the stakeholders. Okay, because one teacher might find a platform like Optum or Rialto here in Switzerland may be interesting, but if the company boss doesn't like it and he's not willing to use it, then it's very difficult. In that sense, I think what OECD Center for Skills is doing, the effort on creating the policies to bring different stakeholders into the story, I think that's very important to have everyone on board and have a consensus among them. My second point from a researcher point of view is that usually innovations often come from research, but research projects, anything we develop, the technologies die. A PhD student develops a very cool VR application. Once this person graduates and decide not to build a company that commercializes the technology will die. I mean, we try our best to stay in contact with the teachers and companies to keep it going, but there is a certain limitation. And if also some technologies are provided by companies, if the company dies, then there's sudden end to this. And I don't know. I don't have a very concrete solution to this, but maybe again some high-level support, policy framework, curricula built based on the policy. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and also of course financial funding. Maybe these are some of the things that that we should consider.
Thank you, and certainly for highlighting that the vet stakeholders, they're very important to engage, but there are many. That doesn't make things easier. Joachim, also the same question for you, in particular for Innovet. You've worked with many different stakeholders as well. What are some of the challenges you've seen?
Yes, to sum up, I actually see three main challenges. The first one is financially. I saw some questions already in the chat about the cost of these modules, for example. And for Innovet, we give a school 40,000 euros, and it's most of the time not sufficient for the development of the tool that the school envisions. So they have to make difficult decisions about what to include, what can we miss, what is nice to have, what is absolutely essential. So that's not an ideal world. We also have, next to Innovat, we have other projects like Smart Education at Schools in Flanders. The budget there is 80,000 euros per project. And even there, the budget is not always sufficient. So keep in mind, these VR modules are very pedagogically interesting, but there also a big cost attached to it because it's so new. So we have to keep that in mind with the Innovet projects in the future for the Innovet projects, that the budget is not sufficient. I see a second big problem with Innovet, and it's something Kevin alluded to as well, and it's the durability aspect of the technology that is designed. When the financing stops for Innovet, most projects get shelved, and it's a real shame because there's no structural financing coupled to the updating of the new technology, making sure it keeps available for teachers to use. And it's a big problem because a lot of budget goes into the creation of the tools, but not many budget goes to the sustainability of the tools. So that's something in policy making we have to do better. Creating new structures on how to keep them up to date, how to keep them available to teachers should be priority when you make new projects for Innovet, for example, in the future. We have tried to address this year by adding a second development year and dissemination year, but it's not a structural solution to the problem. So we have to look at new possibilities, new structures we can add to Innovet to provide a solution. And I see a third problem, and it's a timing problem. Innovet is a one-year project, so the production of the new tool and the dissemination of the tool should be in the same year, which is very time consuming and oftentimes impossible because the delivery of the product is oftentimes May or June. Teachers go on holiday in July. You have exams in June. So timing for professionalization and dissemination in June is oftentimes impossible for teachers. So yeah, that's another big issue, the timing aspect of Innovet. But I think to sum up, and the most important things to look at internationally, I think the durability aspect of technology and innovation is a very big challenge.
Thank you, Joachim, and that's indeed important to highlight. I think also in the Ukrainian context, where a lot of things happening, a lot of initiatives being set up by different partners, but how to ensure that they stay alive in the next couple of years, and that we can disseminate them, that we can then scale them up when they work. It's a very good point indeed. We still have around 10 minutes for Q&A with the audience. Joachim, you already picked up on one of the questions that we received about the costs, and I'd like to see if others would like to pick up on that as well. So we received a question about what are the costs of these technologies, but also what type of technical support is provided to make sure that people can use these technologies. I don't know if James, Olina, or Kevin would also like to pick up on that.
I personally, I work at a public university in Switzerland, and Swiss government pays my salary, so I'm not willing to sell any technology to you. So if there is a way to us to do some collaboration in a way to allow people in Ukraine to use the technology from our side, we'll be happy to. There's needs to be some sort of a structural financing, of course, like as a research project or an application project. But I'm open to collaborations, and I'll be happy to further discuss possibilities.
Thank you, Kevin. Maybe James, can you, not necessarily about the cost, but the kind of the technical support that is provided to help the three different stakeholders that you mentioned use the platform?
Yeah, I can only answer from the perspective of its application in the United Kingdom, and I've seen a few questions relating to this. Just to head off at the pass, at the minute, Aptum doesn't sell or operate our product in the Ukraine. And I'm going to explain that very briefly. It's not because we couldn't. It's because at the core of our product is compliance. And so the regulations and the rules that sit, well, we don't have the rule set and the regulations for Ukraine in the product. So it's not a no, it's just one of our key value propositions sort of disappears outside of the UK. That being said, driving adoption is a hard thing, full stop, for any product. Um, the key thing to find in whatever technology that is chosen is finding success points of gratification within the product, because that is the time where the user sees value. Now, from a provider versus a learner, they're going to have two quite different perspectives, and even subset different perspectives within that. So a learner wants to feel that they're progressing. That feels like an obvious one to drive forwards. If they can see, feel, and touch that they are actually moving forwards, they are further compelled to engage with the system. And a lot of our investments to date have been to try and drive that engagement. The UK has big dropout rates in terms of vocational learning. And now that's not just technology focused, right? There are all sorts of reasons for that. But it's far higher than it would be in academia. From a provider perspective, there are two key things they're looking at here. Of course, they want to drive quality, but they also are trying to drive revenue. So you could look at this as every time they have to interact with a learner, this sounds bad, but every time they have to interact with a learner, it costs them some money. So each of those interactions has to be as efficient and as effective as possible. And as a result of that, if it makes their life easier using the technology, they want to come back and do it. And then subsequently, if they make more money as a result of having used the technology, as sad as that might be as a statement, that's the reality of the world, then they're more likely to come and use the software. And that is what we've found in the research that we've done with the customers we have, that they do appear to be. And correlation is not causation, so be careful. But they do seem to be more profitable, and they do seem to have better success rates as a result of using our software. But that was a very general answer, and I'm sorry I can't be more specific about its application in Ukraine.
Thanks, James. I see that we've also received a question on teacher skills. So to what extent are teachers capable of using technologies? Joachim, you already touched on that a little bit. Do you want to maybe expand a bit on what you've seen in terms of the vet teacher skills?
It varies greatly. You have a lot of teachers that are very competent and like to experiment with new technologies, but there's also a large teacher base in Flanders that's not really comfortable with using new technologies. I don't have the numbers on me, but we have recently had Mictivo. It's a research into teacher proficiency in using technology. I could look it up and link it for you, because I think there's also an English translation of it. So perhaps that could be useful. For Innovat, we mostly attract teachers that are willing to experiment and try and learn from these new materials. So perhaps it's a bit of a privileged class, like a Matthäus effect, where you have certain teachers that are already engaged with technology who want to learn more. But on the one hand, it creates a sort of a trickle-down effect in the school, where you have some type of front runners who are very comfortable and are willing to learn. And then they can teach their colleagues on how to use it. So that is something we see in Innovat, that by one teacher, the rest of the school can be pulled into the effort and can be convinced of using the technology. I don't have specific numbers on teacher proficiency and comfortability, but it's something I could link in the chat if you're willing to.
That would be great. We're always looking for data at the OECD, so we're happy to receive that link. maybe Olina, with you, I think you also mentioned that for the Profosvita platform, you also develop training for teachers. Maybe you can tell us only for students, not for teachers.
Yes, only for students.
Thank
May
you.
I? Yeka?
Yes, Irina, go ahead.
Because I know the answer on this question. Yes, we have one course on our platform on digital pedagogy. So a sort of different possibilities for teachers to use information technologies and other technologies in their development of learning materials. But also we are working together with our partners such as Mimbus on different teachers training. But of course, if we look at the whole picture, so it's always not enough, especially in countries such as Ukraine. So we have only in our sector more than 30,000 teachers in VET. But in schools, that's much more. So I think that teachers training will be our priority for the next few years, and of course empowering them with the digital instruments and how work in this new environment is very important.
I just want to add something. There is no courses about for teachers that was created by us, but also we have a very interesting project in Sigma Software University. It calls Teacher Smart Up. It is a special project for teachers from schools and universities during which we just explain about newest equipment, about newest technologies, and etc. It happens 2 times per year, and I think that is a very useful project for teachers nowadays.
Thank you, Olina and Irina. That's indeed good to know that these types of materials exist that teachers can use to upskill. I see that Kevin wants to come in on this as well.
Yes, training the teachers is very important, but also one approach could be making authoring tools more, easy to use and accessible. If integration of a VR experiment is at the level of pasting a photo on a PowerPoint, somehow if we can bring it down to that level, I think that's an approach from the other side, making it more easier for teachers to use. I think it's a research point that we can think about. But the recent development of generative models, LLM-based interaction to create virtual environments, coding without programming. I mean, I think it's an interesting aspect, not only from the boosting the teacher's capability, but also making technology more accessible.
Absolutely, we should be removing all the barriers as much as we can. And Joachim also wants to jump in on this.
Yeah, picking up upon what Kevin said, that I think is what makes Innovet such an interesting example, because the teacher there is a driving force in the development in cooperation with the software developers, in cooperation with the local communities, local companies. So you have the teacher who is active and present when the tool is developed. So the teacher knows what is going to be in the tool, what are the capabilities, how can I adjust the tool so that it fits my learning needs and my pupils' learning needs. So it's really a tailored product. And I think if you want to take away that resistance and to have teachers be comfortable using it, the teacher has to take a vital role into the production of the tools. And that's what we see with Innovet, and that's why it's also successful, between parentheses, because the teacher there is a driving force. And I think that is perhaps something we could emulate on an international level, where the teacher takes a more central role in developing these new technologies. It could be a research project, perhaps, Kevin. I don't know.
Thank you, Achim. I'm happy to see partnerships being formed live here. But yes, this point on co-creation is also something that came true in our own research, and that is also one of the emerging policy message, if I can say so. I see that we are at the end of the time that we had. I know that the interpreters definitely need a break at this point. So let me just end by thanking all the speakers here today, so the panelists, but also my colleague Shin Young, and of course, especially also Irina for joining today and for the fruitful collaboration already in the past months. And thank you also to the audience for being very active in the chat. I hope we managed to answer most of the questions that were asked there. As I mentioned at the beginning, the recording will be made available as well. So please feel free to share that with your broader network. And I would say stay tuned for our publication. So everything that was discussed here today will certainly be feeding into that so that we can refine our policy messages and bring more useful examples for Ukraine to the table as well. So thank you very much and hope to see you at the next webinar again. Bye bye.
Thank you.